All right, good morning, everyone. So under this panel discussion, we're going to explore the critical intersection between electric mobility and the skills necessary to be successful in this rapidly evolving industry. You know, as we all try to embrace the future of transportation, it is paramount, you know, that we equip our workforce with the expertise, you know, to navigate, you know, this transformative landscape. So we're just going to, you know, hear some invaluable insights and discuss the solutions to training the workforce of the future here. So the three panelists, experts we have today are Mary Halleck of the Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Center, also known as IMEC. We have Mark Densler of the Illinois Manufacturing Association, and Kurt Ward, professor at Joliet Junior College. And so well, we're going to start off this with Mark. He's going to give us a kind of a holistic view of manufacturing industry as it relates to electric vehicles. So Mark, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Well, good morning. Thank you so much, and I appreciate everyone coming out today. Mark Densler, President and CEO of the Illinois Manufacturers Association. Just a little bit of background. We're the nation's oldest state manufacturing association. We're celebrating our 130th anniversary today. A lot of members in the room today. MyJack, Lion Electric, going down the list, TCCI, and so greatly appreciated. But manufacturing today, just to give you a snapshot, we employ about 650,000 workers directly in the state. Every manufacturing job leads to another 1.9 jobs. So when you look at that in totality, just about 30% of all jobs in the state of Illinois are linked directly or indirectly to manufacturing. And then when you break down into the sectors, food is number one, but transportation equipment is number two. And that is primarily the auto sector. And we think traditional OEMs, you think the Ford, the Stellantis, General Motors, those types of companies. But what we're really seeing, tremendous growth is in the EV sector. And as Ryan was talking about air transportation, it's not just the vehicles that you drive around today. You also have to think about what Caterpillar is doing in electric trains, what John Deere is doing in heavy equipment, and what Lion is doing in trucks. And so when you look today within the Illinois manufacturing sector, about 110,000 jobs are linked to transportation. And so those are the large OEMs down to the small suppliers. And the importance of the EV sector in the workforce, I can't stress enough, that is one of Illinois' huge advantages. Our skilled workforce, Ryan talked about it, the U of I graduates more engineers than the next three schools combined. We talk about the business schools, and it's just such a critical component. I know when we talk to our members, whether they're large Fortune 50 or they're small companies, finding a skilled workforce is the most important thing that they constantly talk about doing. And so what the IMA has done with our partners in state government, in particular, we created the manufacturing academies. The IMA had the idea a couple years ago. We worked with the Pritzker administration to create these world-class manufacturing academies because, as you know, there are 48 community colleges in the state of Illinois. They all have their own programs, but they didn't necessarily all have manufacturing programs. And so where I grew up, or I live in Springfield today, Lincoln Land's a great community college, but they really don't have a strong manufacturing program. So a student in Springfield that wants to get into it really didn't have an opportunity. So by creating these world-class manufacturing academies, where a student who wants to get into EV from Springfield can go to Heartland Community College now in Bloomington to get that skills training. One of the important changes we also made with the state legislature that the governor signed into law last year and passed unanimously is career and technical education in our high schools. We'd slowly seen over the last 10 or 15 years, unfortunately, the loss of CTE in high schools as state legislators imposed other graduation requirements, for example, foreign language, and then schools got rid of CTE. Well, if students can't see it, they can't experience it, they may not see that as an option. And so we passed a new law that takes effect in 2025, where once again, every high school in the state's going to have to offer career and tech ed. So every student will have the opportunity to explore it. They may or may not be interested, but they're going to have that opportunity to go into those careers. We've also worked and the governor signed in his first year in office an apprenticeship tax credit. So, and we also have a dual credit program. So those high school students that want to get into manufacturing, maybe they study in class in the morning, they go work for a manufacturer in the afternoon, or they do a 2 or 3 day schedule. Those opportunities are available. And so they're critically important. And for the employers in the room, one other thing I'll just mention federally, one of the big things we hear about are student loans. The governor's office has significantly increased MAP grant funding, which helps our community colleges and our colleges. But there's actually a tax credit out there right now. If you're looking to attract employees or you have current employees that have student debt, the employer can pay off $5,250 of their student debt and get a dollar-for-dollar tax credit. So it's a win-win as you're trying to attract workers or keep them. An employer can pay off part of their college debt and get a dollar-for-dollar tax credit. So it's a great way to attract and retain. An employer can say, hey, you have $20,000 in college debt, we'll pay it off over a period of 5 years, and you have to sign on the dotted line. You're going to stay with us for that period of time, or you have to repay. So again, there are a lot of options out there to help, but I know this is going to be a fascinating debate, and we've been working on education workforce. I would note Chris Valdez, the president of Richland Community College, is here today, and Karen Amerisian, who's on our board, but we have had a community college president on our board of directors for years because of that important linkage. So, Chris, we appreciate you being here today and everything you do in Richland as well. So, thanks, Craig.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mark. We're going to turn it over to Mary Hollick, who kind of has her boots on the ground with her team with IMAC.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I work for IMAC. IMAC is a company whose mission is to improve manufacturing competitiveness throughout Illinois. We're part of a manufacturing extension partnership network throughout the United States. As such, we work day to day. Our team is on the ground with manufacturing employers every single day, learning about their challenges across their organization. Obviously, we work with a large part of the supply chain that exists in the state in the automotive sector as well as the EV sector. And what we hear from those manufacturers is that workforce is a challenge. There's two main challenges. It's hiring, finding the right people to come on board, and then once we've got them on board, we want to make sure they stay with us and don't go somewhere else. So we work with these companies to help them create those opportunities to bring people on board and expand those opportunities for people to come on board. As Lisa shared earlier, some data from our report on the electronic vehicle industry, the EV industry, we're going to see a shift in a need for manufacturing, which is going to mean a shift in the skills needs for these manufacturers. So there's going to be a need to create training plans. Many of our manufacturers are now having to create an internal competency for training that they may not have had to have before. So we work to support them in that competency and building that competency. We want to help work with them to create strong career paths for their employees so that the employee, when they join the company, can see that there are opportunities for them to grow their knowledge and grow their skills. It takes quite a bit of work on the part of a manufacturer to create that kind of competency, and so we work with them to do that. One of the things that we've recently introduced to support this is that we now have we sponsor 17 apprenticeships for the manufacturing industry. They're registered with U.S. Department of Labor, and 4 of them are actually targeted at the EV sector because we believe it's important for these employers to understand what are the skills that folks need to be strong in their work, how can they grow, and also what is the training that these people need to get in order to be successful on their shop floors. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mary. And so we're going to turn it over to Kirk from Joliet Junior College, talk about programs you have going.
Good morning, everyone. I'm a professor of hybrid and electric vehicles technology at Joliet Junior College, so you can imagine what I spend the bulk of my day doing. But I guess my first job is to reach out to those 5th graders that the Congresswoman mentioned and make sure they understand all the opportunities, not only in the STEM area, but what we like to call the STEAM area. and make sure that we include the arts as well, because that's so critical, particularly on the design side and the success in our industry. But as you can imagine, being part of an automotive program, my number one task is to create the workforce that's going to take care of manufacture. Our partners from Lion were up here earlier. We have students that go that way. And then not only to train new students, but to take people who are already in the workforce, who have worked on the traditional ICE automobile or the vehicle with the internal combustion engine, and retrain them to work on anything electric. And what's interesting in this country is all of a sudden we're talking about EVs like this is something new. Folks, Toyota and Honda brought hybrid vehicles to this country in 1999. And if you take away the internal combustion engine, you have an EV. It's just all of a sudden, instead of being 1% of the market sold each month, I think the numbers I saw last month were 7% of the cars sold in the state of Illinois were electrified. If you compare that to other consumer electronics, and you can tell from the color of my hair, I owned one of those first home computers that was large, expensive, and did almost nothing. Somebody told me that the other day that one of these birthday cards that you open that sings actually has more computing power than the first home PC that I owned. But at any rate, having to retrain the folks who are out there already in the world of electronics. And here is the real challenge for us on the workforce side. The skills that we're teaching these students aren't just used in the auto or the aircraft or the manufacturing. Guess what? They're transferable to just about any industry that touches electricity. So here's the great piece. For the 15 students that I have in my class this summer, there's probably 300 job opportunities waiting for them when they're done at the end of the summer session. And so our challenge will be to attract the Alexes of this world, literally in the 5th grade, through some of the great programs, show them the pathway, show them where the earning potential, get them through our programs, and get them out there in the workforce to meet the demands of all these organizations. Thank you. Yes, there are many who would take every one of them. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. So kind of broad question here for the panel here is, how do we perceive the current availability of the EV workforce training programs across the state? And are there any gaps, areas that need improvement within that, in talking with employers?
It's a good question. I say it lags. Certainly you look at Rivian, for example, and the governor put the EV Training Academy at Heartland Community College. But, they've grown to about 7,600 employees today. They've had to do it themselves. And what we're finding are a lot of companies have had to go out and create their own programs. They've worked with IMEC on their EV apprenticeship program. And so it's been a challenge to keep up. And we really don't know. We're trying to train employees for what careers are going to look like in 5 years. And that's really a struggle. And when you look at the 650,000 that work on factory floors today, the skills are different. You can no longer, I grew up in downstate Decatur. My dad worked for the old Tate & Lyle Staley Manufacturing Company. You no longer can walk out of high school, walk to your manufacturer, and work there for 40 years. You have to have additional training. Whether it's at a Governor State or Joliet Junior College or Richland, you have to have some additional skills and training. And what we've seen are a lot of companies taking the step. If anyone has the opportunity, talk to Kara Demerjian and Chris Valdez. Lisa talked about one of the unique programs. Richland Community College is putting a classroom in TCCI. They are going to have a classroom in the manufacturing company. I know we worked with the governor's office in Rockford, the potential to go up there. So partner with your local community colleges to create these training programs or others, because there are novel approaches to that.
Great.
some of the challenges we see is we work with a very small manufacturer, and so they may not even be aware of the resources that are available through the local community colleges or other resources that are doing this kind of training. So just getting the word out. Lisa mentioned the Connector program that DCEO is putting together, and I think that's going to be a huge improvement because it'll help bring that information more broadly. So it's not just the large manufacturers that are aware of these opportunities, but we get the word out to all manufacturers so that they can all take advantage of it.
And I'll simply say this. We're blessed at Joliet Junior College. We had somebody with a vision 7-8 years ago to see this coming and to acquire the funds and the resources to get our program in place so that we can support our local partners like Lion. Many of the community colleges around the state are just getting started, and this is a real opportunity for the local employers to get on board early, let the community college know what your needs are. Here's a novel concept, even help with acquiring the necessary finances and resources to make it happen, because that's one of the challenges that we all face, and literally customize that workforce that's coming out of that community college that will meet your needs.
And Craig, if I could follow up on one thing, one of the problems we have, and someone mentioned perception of Illinois' reputation, which is getting a lot better, but manufacturing has a perception problem. When we go out and we talk to kids and do you want to go into manufacturing, very few hands will raise because there's this antiquated view that manufacturing is dark, dirty, and dangerous. It is smokestacks, it is cogs. That's not what manufacturing is. All of you in the room that have gone out, it's sustainable, it's autonomous, it's technical, it's advanced. And so we have to do a better job of reaching out to that fifth grader in the student in junior high to let them know the opportunities. The majority of manufacturing workers today look like me. They're older, they're white, they're male, maybe not as good looking. But, all right, you're all awake. But we have to do a better job as an industry of showcasing manufacturing, of getting, whether there are communities of color, returning veterans, ex-offenders, women, while they're a majority of the workforce, are only about 30% of manufacturing workers. So we as an industry have to do a better job of opening our doors, showing what we do, hosting events during Manufacturing Month or the entire year. But we have to show these young people or others that there are opportunities. As Kurt said, the average manufacturing job pays about $80,000 a year in wages and benefits. So these are good jobs, but we have to change that perception, not only as students, but parents, teachers, counselors, and others.
Right. No, thank you. That's very good, very true. Yeah, because it's, it's interesting too, because, high school kids aren't coming out of college saying, I want to be a welder, or I want to work in manufacturing, let alone they're not even coming out of school saying, I want to work in supply chain. There's a whole, array of jobs just in the supply chain arena that people aren't even aware of. And so with that, how do we, how do we develop workforce training programs that, are going to address the needs of the disadvantaged or underrepresented communities, ensuring equitable access to training and job opportunities?
So it's a challenge, and you look at particularly the area where JJC touches, which is most of Will County and then some. And you look at the number of high school and elementary schools and the number of students who are on free lunches. All right, and that's a real easy way to know kind of what the economics of the community are. But that being said, you have an incredible pool of talent. And programs like dual credit, programs like dual attendance, where the community colleges are able to reach out into the local high schools and get those students started not only on a technical path, but other areas as well, and provide that support and essentially get those future employees in the pipeline today and show them that path. One of the big parts of this program for apprenticeships that the state is sponsoring is to go out and show these students the pathway, to be able to say, hey, there is, yes, it's to your point, it's not a dark, dirty floor. I had the opportunity to be on the production floor at Lion Electric back in January. The place is so clean you could eat off the floor, literally. And that's not what you would have expected from an automotive or a truck manufacturing plant. And to show those opportunities and those career paths and basically help those folks to understand that there's a path forward.
Great. So, we talk about recruiting, getting to the individuals younger at 5th grade and such. And so that's certainly one aspect of trying to reach an audience. How do we, or what resources could maybe, the state provide, or how do we get the employers involved to collectively to help address a workforce issue throughout the state of Illinois? How do we provide, what resources could we provide? How do we engage the employers to come together? Because I'm sure Lion Electric has the same issues as Rivian, has the same issues as Li-Cycle, and how do we bring those experts together to say, help us figure out how to help solve your problem? What are some things that maybe we could do from an education perspective, association perspective, to close that gap there?
So very quickly, at Joliet Junior College, every one of our technical programs across the campus has an advisory board. That advisory board is made up of local businesses in the community. We meet twice a year, and our purpose is to find out what we need to do to provide better employees. So I would suggest that no matter where you're at, the local community college, and in some cases the local high school, has these same advisory boards, and if you will reach out and find out when they meet, who to contact, you will immediately have a path and an influence on what's taught in that school, and can make a real impact on the employees that you're going to have in the future.
I think it's a great point that he makes, and all this has to be local. And so when you look at the state, we're a big state, we're diverse, and so what may be needed in Lake County, for example, where they have a heavy biopharmaceutical presence, is different maybe in the Quad Cities where John Deere's preeminent, or in Peoria, which is heavy equipment. And Kurt's right, the employers have to come together, they have to collaborate, and they have to let their educators know what they need. Because Governor State or Kankakee or Joliet Community College, they don't know unless the employers let them know what they need. So have those relationships and build those out. And the other thing I would say, when your previous question about diversity and what you do, is there's so many wraparound services that are needed as well. And we see a lot of individuals that want to go into manufacturing. They'll fill positions at a community college maybe at night because they're working during the day, but guess what? They have transportation issues, and they have childcare issues. And particularly, in some communities or some individuals, it's the soft skills. If you can get manufacturers, if you can get someone to show up on time, that's 98% of the battle. And so, again, I keep talking about Richland, but Courtney Carson's here. And those that don't know him, the Enrich program has, I think, 100% placement rate. Courtney, wave your hand, stand up, there we go. And so they have a great program where students come in from Decatur, low, middle class students a lot in the Richland, and they will help them with the wraparound services, and they'll show them those soft skills because, again, manufacturers, if you get someone to show up at work, we will train you, or we'll send you to a community college. And so, again, do it locally, work with your local resources, but you have to let them know what you need in terms of training. And from a state perspective, again, I give the governor a lot of credit. Record funding again in this budget for job training. The ETIP grant program, the IMA helps administer for that. There's a $7 million line item that we've been working with the governor's office for a manufacturing jobs campaign across the entire state. We've done things to try to do it. We wrapped a bus last year with IMEC. We did 2,100 miles, 21 stops in 8 days. Had students come, had employees to just showcase what manufacturers are. So again, open up your facilities, let the community know what you are, because for the most part, probably in an industrial park, a gray nondescript building, they don't know what you do. So you have to open your doors and share and let the community know what you do.
I just kind of want to echo what Mark's been talking about, and just encourage manufacturing leaders to take advantage of those opportunities when there are local roundtables, when there are local organizations such as IMA, IMEC, a lot of other ones who sponsor these roundtables to discuss these issues, because there's a lot of good learning that takes place when these leaders get together. And so that's when you start putting together the idea that, oh, you're doing something very similar to me. Why don't we combine our resources, you know, to take advantage of whatever skill development, and that's how you start getting kind of that critical mass to be able to take it out to local resources and build some sort of a system with that.
In a cheap, shameless plug, the IMA and IMEC are hosting their second annual education summit in early June, all around manufacturing. And we did this last year. We did 8 stops around the state, did a big summit. So again, we're trying to bring that collaboration together. We'll have state partners, local partners, education partners, and manufacturers. So we're trying to bring everyone together.
Oh, that's fantastic. I know there's a lot of work going around industry sector partnerships, you know, and doing it from a local perspective certainly makes sense. One final question. This might be a little bit more for Kurt. What I lost my note here. What are the industry certification or recognized standards that employers are using to hire EV technicians? Are there, you know, credentials already in place, and what does that look like?
Sure. The auto industry is kind of unique in that certifications are voluntary. I laughingly say in the state of Illinois, potentially the nice person who cuts my hair is licensed and the person who puts brake pads on my car is not, which is kind of a scary thought.
I haven't had a haircut for a while, so.
Anyway, but you know, the reality is there are a number of national certification standards that can be met by programs who are delivering the training, obviously earned by the students and the technicians in the field through testing and experience. They have moved forward now with some new EV standards that are just rolling out through a National Science Foundation grant and Central Oregon Community College, where we would test EV technicians at the same level that we test aircraft technicians, and which is a really good thing because you're not only demonstrating technical knowledge, but you're demonstrating hands-on expertise. Because you can imagine what we want on the person who's going to fix the airplane that we're going to fly on next. So we would expect the same thing with our electric vehicles. But one of the challenges that we face as an educational industry is first getting the instructors certified at that level. And in some cases, that's a real place where the industry can help the educational institution, particularly if you're talking about an instructor, say, at a local high school where the resources may not be as great as, say, a community college. So the standards are out there, and they are emerging and changing literally by the day, but you can bet if you get a student or a future employee through a program that has met the standards, that you're going to get a top-notch employee.
And I would just say, you know, when you think about the jobs, I drive a Rivian R1T truck, and you think about you used to take it in to get service, and now it's a download. So it's not necessarily the tech that's coming in the story. So I'm driving the Rivian in December. We get a warning because the regenerative braking, so it automatically brakes when you take your foot off, and like a golf cart. And so obviously you may not want to hit the brakes when it's snowing. And so all of a sudden we get an email one day and they said, hey, we're going to have a snow mode tomorrow. You know what? Boom, download the next day snow mode for the vehicle, which only 50% braking instead of 100%. So when you think about that in the training, I'm not taking it into the car dealer. I'm not having someone work on it for 2 hours. There is some trained technician, engineer, whatever, at Rivian that's programming this that then gets downloaded to every Rivian in the country overnight. I mean, think about that technology. I mean, it is crazy cool, and that's the story that we have to share with, particularly young people.
Absolutely.
I think we should not forget about our apprenticeships. It's not necessarily a required standard per se but it is a clear credential that an employee can bring into their next job that gives them some validity that I've had some very good training here, so we shouldn't forget about our apprenticeships.
All right, great, thank you. And what you're saying, Mark, with the technology of computer science, I got to plug GSU's computer science program. So anyway, thank you, panelists. I appreciate your time and your expertise.